You know, trying to get a handle on the LA housing market for 2026 can feel, well, impossible, right? You hear one person shouting boom while another is screaming bust. So, we're going to cut through all that noise and look at what the data is really telling us. Let's dive in.
So this is the million-dollar question, isn't it? If you're even thinking about buying, selling, or hey, even just watching from the sidelines, it really feels like we're at a major turning point. Are we about to see prices go to the moon again? Are we heading for a painful crash? Or is something else entirely taking shape here?
This quote right here, it just absolutely nails it. Forget the wild roller coaster ride of the past few years. The 2026 market is shaping up to be way less about crazy speculation and much more about solid, predictable things. You know, the fundamentals, like supply, demand, and what people can actually afford.
Okay, so what's the new playbook for success in 2026? It really boils down to 3 words. The first is stability, which means we're not expecting these huge, wild swings. The second is selectivity, because believe me, buyers are being much more careful and doing their homework. And the third is strategy, because both buyers and sellers need a really smart plan to succeed. So remember that: stability, selectivity, and strategy.
So what's actually causing this big shift into a more stable era? Well, our analysis shows there are really 4 main forces that are reshaping the entire landscape. Let's break them down one by one.
First up, let's talk about mortgage rates. The good news is they're finally coming down from those eye-watering peaks. But, and this is a big but, don't expect to see those rock-bottom pandemic rates again. The biggest takeaway here is that buyers are absolutely laser-focused on that monthly payment, which means sellers just can't get away with pricing their homes based on a wish and a prayer anymore.
The second force is something every Angelino feels: tight inventory. LA just does not have enough homes to go around. Why? Well, it's kind of a perfect storm of tough zoning laws, sky-high construction costs, and this huge factor: a ton of homeowners are locked into their crazy low mortgage rates and have zero desire to sell. This shortage creates a natural safety net under prices, which keeps the market from tanking for homes that are priced right. Okay, now this third one is a big deal, and it often gets overlooked. Affordability isn't just about the mortgage payment anymore, not even close. Buyers are now having to factor in soaring insurance costs, property taxes, and HOA fees. These things take a massive bite out of a buyer's budget, and they're seriously impacting what people are willing or even able to pay for a home.
And finally, the fourth force, the buyer themselves. They've completely changed. The emotional fear of missing out buyer from a couple of years ago, they're gone. They've been replaced by a super careful, analytical buyer who's digging deep into the data. They're comparing price per square foot, days on market, you name it. And this has created this 2-speed market where a well-priced home gets snapped up in a flash, while an overpriced one just sits there.
Okay, so we know these 4 forces are at play, but what does that mean for you? How do you actually navigate this new market? Let's get practical and open up the playbook for both buyers and sellers.
So here's how it all plays out. For buyers, you can breathe. Seriously, the crazy frenzy is over. Slower price growth gives you time to actually find a place you love without getting dragged into a ridiculous bidding war. Now for sellers, it's a game of precision. Your number one job is to get the list price right from day one based on actual recent sales. That old move of testing the market with a high price is the fastest way to have your listing go stale.
All right, now we have to talk about one of the most critical things to understand about Los Angeles real estate. You simply cannot think of LA as one single market. It's just not true.
The real LA is a collection of what we call micro-markets, and it's exactly what it sounds like: a smaller, super localized market where a neighborhood's own unique vibe, things like amazing schools or being able to walk to cool coffee shops, drives its performance. What's happening in Santa Monica could be the total opposite of what's happening in Bel Air.
And hey, don't just take my word for it. Look at the data. Check out the projected appreciation for 2026. You've got Santa Monica and Culver City looking at a pretty healthy 3 to 5% growth. But then, look over at Bel Air. It's a much cooler 1.5 to 3.5%. This right here is the micro-market effect in action. Your neighborhood's performance can be totally different from the one right next door.
So here's the bottom line, and it's really important. Forget the big citywide headlines. They're almost useless. To really know what's going on, you have to zoom all the way in and look at the data for your specific street, for your specific neighborhood. That is where the real story is.
So all this talk of a slowdown and a new normal brings us to the elephant in the room. A lot of people hear this and they start to worry about one thing: a market crash. Let's just address that head on. This is the question we see everywhere. Based on everything we've just talked about, the smarter buyer, the cooling prices, is the foundation of the entire market about to just crumble?
So, is the market going to crash? The data is telling us no. A crash means a steep, out-of-control free fall in prices. That is not what this is. What we're actually seeing is a controlled reset, a healthy and frankly much-needed correction back to a market that actually makes sense.
Why are we so confident about this? Well, you can think of the LA market as having some powerful guardrails in place. For one, most homeowners are sitting on a mountain of equity, so you're not going to see a wave of forced sales. Throw in a strong local job market and that chronic housing shortage we keep talking about, and the foundation is just way too solid to crash.
And that brings us right back to where we started. The 2026 Los Angeles housing market isn't about trying to perfectly time a boom or a bust. That's a fool's game. This is a market that rewards knowledge, preparation, and a smart strategy. For anyone who understands these new rules, there is still incredible opportunity out there. The real question isn't when to act, it's how.